Will Nebraska's schedule be easier? Will it be tougher in 2025? Let's break it all down for you. Here is that schedule, and we'll start with the non-conference. So they are going to play Cincinnati. Again, that game will be in Kansas City, neutral site game. Then they'll play Akron and HCU, which I believe is Houston Christian University. So we're talking about an FCS team there. So it should be a couple of easy wins. And then Cincinnati might be a little bit of a tougher game, but I feel pretty good about Nebraska's chances in that one. So that's their non-conference schedule. Let's look at the home and away. So in the Big Ten, they'll have Michigan, Michigan State, Northwestern, USC, and Iowa at home. And then you look at their road schedule. In the Big Ten, it's Maryland, Minnesota, UCLA, and Penn State. This is not a horrible schedule here. You notice no Ohio State, no Oregon. Yeah, it works out pretty well here. When you look at home games, you got Michigan, that's going to be a home game. USC and Iowa, tougher games, they'll be at home. That road schedule is very favorable in my opinion. Maryland, Minnesota, UCLA. Minnesota was pretty good last year. We'll see what they look like this year. Obviously, the Penn State game is going to be really, really tough, but they don't need to win that one, honestly. If they take care of business in these other games, Nebraska becomes a real playoff contender. And I think this schedule gives them a chance to be maybe a dark horse team. I'm not saying they're going to be one of the favorites to get in the playoff, but I do think, again, it does give them a chance to be one of those dark horse teams. I think people will be talking about them this offseason. You look at the changes in the Big Ten Conference schedule. They got rid of Illinois, Indiana, Ohio State, Purdue, Rutgers, and Wisconsin. So that's you look at the top three right there: Illinois, Indiana, Ohio State. Avoiding those three, that's big. And then you look at who they added: Maryland and Michigan, Michigan State, Minnesota, Northwestern, Penn State. Obviously, Penn State's going to be a tough addition. Like I said, Michigan, I think, will also be a tough one. But Nebraska potentially could be better than these other teams in the Big Ten. So I really like the way this schedule, or at least the opponents, I like the way the opponents shake out for Nebraska. But how about where the games are in the schedule? Let's break that all down now. So we start with Cincinnati. That's going to be a Thursday night game, again, in Kansas City. That'll be the opener. Then they get Akron on September 6th and HCU on September 13th. So three non-conference games to start off the season. You like Nebraska's chances in those three games. And then it'll be a tough one on September 20th at home against Michigan. But it is a home game. It's not going to be like coming off of a tough game before that or anything like that. There's a bye week after, so there's like no elements of any kind of distraction. I mean, Nebraska's focus should be fully on this game. If they can win that game and they get past Cincinnati first and then, again, take care of business in these other two games, Nebraska could very easily be 4-0 heading into that first bye week. And then you look at that next part of the schedule. Now, this is a long stretch with no bye weeks. They go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games in a row, 6 weeks in a row without a bye week because their other bye week comes late. It's kind of weird how they have an earlier bye week and then a later bye week. But they'll have Michigan State at home on October 4th. Then they'll play Maryland on the road October 11th and Minnesota on the road October 18th. Back-to-back road games there, but not against really tough opponents. And those will be tough games, don't get me wrong, but you're not playing like elite teams or anything. And then you've got Northwestern at home on the 25th of October. And then it's USC at home on November 1st. And then it's on the road at UCLA November 8th. So when I look at those games, Michigan State, Maryland, Minnesota, Northwestern, USC, and UCLA, Nebraska could be favored in all 6 of those games. I don't know about Minnesota on the road. That's one that is a little bit tricky. I do look at that UCLA game as being a tough one there, having to travel out west right after playing USC. So that's like an upset alert type game there. And UCLA could wind up being pretty good this year. We'll see. But again, a manageable 6-game stretch. Not saying Nebraska is going to win all those games, but they could, and it wouldn't be crazy to think that they could. And so we could be talking about a 10-0 Nebraska team going into that second bye week, or maybe they do lose to Michigan, or maybe they lose on the road to Minnesota, a team with just one loss going into that second bye week. But then I think it's all going to come down to these final 2 weeks. If Nebraska's going to have a chance to get into that playoff conversation or possibly get into the Big Ten championship game, something like that, you look at these final 2 games. This is where they could trip up. You've got Penn State on the road, November 22nd. That's going to be a very, very tough game. I think Penn State might be the best team in the Big Ten this year. And then you've got Iowa, rivalry game always close. Nebraska has struggled to win this one, so that one will be tough as well. So it really just comes down to where they are going into that Penn State game. If they only lose one game, then they just have to split those final 2 games. But if they've already lost 2, it's going to be tough for them to beat Penn State. Let's just be honest here. And then you have Iowa as well. Again, if they can have a really good start to the season, they can get, let's say, to 9-1, then all they would have to do is split these final 2 games. I think winning those final 2 games would just be probably too much to ask. But again, there's potential there for Nebraska to be a dark horse team this year. You look at how their Big Ten schedule stacks up with everyone else, and you look at the winning percentages from last season for their opponents this year. Nebraska's opponents went 37-44 last season. Again, we're talking about the 2025 opponents. That's a 46% win percentage. That's one of the lower percentages. They don't have that tough of a schedule in the Big Ten. And Cincinnati is their toughest non-conference game. I don't think Cincinnati is going to be great. So, like I said before, Nebraska's schedule sets up really, really well for them to be a dark horse team in 2025.